coming. Would our panelists like to come ahead on up here and I'll introduce you? This one works right. Our panel really quickly. We have Dr. Alexandria Estrella, the superintendent of our public schools. And then we have Sergeant Brien McMahon, the school resource officer supervisor with Norwalk Public Police. And then I'm going to fully say that I actually can't see who's beyond, so I'm just going to read the names and I'm going to hope that I get them right. We have Stephanie, right? Stephanie Peckham, the Dean of Students, right here at Nathan Hill Middle School. Well, not here at Nathan Hill Middle School, sorry. Over at Nathan Hill Middle School. And then next we have our high school senior who's actually from right here at Brien McMahon. I always screw up your last name. What's your, how do you say last name? Sorry? Gutierrez, sorry. And then on the end there, we have Emily Longo, the Director of Family Therapy at Silver Hill Hospital. And last and not least, we have our parent and the head of People and Analytics at Fidelity Investment, Nick, and I know I asked you and I'm going to say this wrong again. Guillermo.
That's good.
Thank you so much. So we're going to begin tonight's discussion with kind of a reflection on the film, and then we'll go from there. And don't worry, at the end there'll be time where you guys can ask some questions, okay? All right. So, which scene or fact from the film kind of resonated the most with you personally or professionally? This is up for anyone. Anyone in particular? Go ahead, Nick.
I think the thing that resonated with me, there were a couple scenes, but the one that stands out the most was when the story of that girl who shared the pictures of herself, and she didn't share it with her parent because she thought her parents would get mad at her. And then I think I'm a parent of two. I have a son in 2nd grade and a daughter in 3rd grade, and I'm sort of like the really early stages of this, and sort of I saw some of myself in that scene where I could sort of be a little bit hard-nosed at times, and so I sort of, that was memorable to me, and so I find myself saying at home, I would rather you come to me thinking that I'll know what to do versus thinking that I might get mad. So that resonated with me personally.
Thank you. I think for me, toward the end when it talked about how everybody is happy when there are rules and boundaries in the home, and seeing all of those teens sort of nod their heads, talking with families, balancing warmth with rules and boundaries is actually easier to do when there is collaboration. And so that really struck me, that the film was talking about when you are making those rules and boundaries and you are having these conversations, to collaborate with your kids. Doesn't matter how old they are, they've got input, and so that resonated with me.
As a student, what resonated me the most from the film is I think about the after-school activities. I feel like I usually set myself 3 times a week to stay after school and do something, and that's where one can build empathy. As you know, people aren't on their phones. We're actually doing something in the community, and it's unbelievable that only 40% of students don't have anything to do after school. So I think that could be something we can address in. But you know, that statistic was a little shocking to me.
So what resonated with me personally is like the whole idea. My son's a senior in high school, and this year where he goes to high school, they banned cell phones, and he was very upset. He was extremely angry because he's a senior, he should have all these privileges. And I asked him, and he knew I was doing this, I said, how do you feel now? How do you feel now that it's been since October? And he's actually happy about it. He's very happy that they don't have cell phones anymore, that they can just talk to each other. I've noticed in our own school, we do bell to bell, they're not allowed to have their phones, and I've noticed there's so much more chatter happening. When we go out for recess, they're playing. There's a lot of, just when I first started as the dean at Nathan Hill, the students were using their cell phones outside when we would have recess and at lunch. And I kind of, coming from being a high school teacher where we were a little bit more lackadaisical at the time, it was really, I was like, oh, of course they can have their phones. And then I realized they should not have their phones because they were not interacting. Fast forward a few years later, we became very strict about it, and they play. They play like the 10, 11, and 12-year-olds that they actually are. And the lunchroom is so loud. And I know that you guys would say, you're like, oh my God, it's so loud, but it's a good thing. It's a really, really good thing because they're talking to each other. So it's not good for my ears, but it's good for
Good evening. What resonated with me was the accountability contract that the mother decided to make with her daughter. And what's important about that when I saw it was I have an 8-year-old daughter, and she does not hold back. And when I have my phone out, it's, what are you doing? Why are you on your phone? What are you doing? And it reminds me to get out of this trap of technology that we're all in right now. And furthermore, the professional side is what the gentleman in the beginning said, the picture sharing. We see that so often, and it can destroy social lives and shut people down and create all sorts of other mental health issues just because of one misstep that they really don't even understand the ramifications for.
So I think for me, I'll start as a mom. One of the things that hit home was the scene when the child that had a scholarship to go to college lost basically his opportunities because of his addiction to gaming. And thinking back when my twin boys were going to college, and I basically refused to allow them to take their gaming systems, and feeling bad also, because I was like, did I make the right choice? But seeing that scene kind of like made me feel better as a mom, that I did make the right decision in not letting them take the devices, even though they hated me for a few months. And just like really applying that to also the research by Dr. Ramirez in the film, and talking about the cognitive loss in mice, and what is the correlation of that to humans? Do we even really know the impact that this technology is having on our children's mental development? I think the film spoke a lot about the different components, but we still don't know yet fully what the implications are. So it brings a lot of food for thought for me in thinking about what do we have to do differently as a system to ensure that we maintain the most healthiest environment for our scholars.
Well, it seems like everyone really had kind of concerns in the same area, on balancing, your technology use with the rest of life. Dr. Estrella, can you kind of talk about how public schools balance the educational potential of the one-to-one Chromebooks with the distractions that come with technology?
So it's always a challenging balance because within our networks, we can control what happens and what students have access to. It's actually a partnership. It's something that we as a system cannot do in isolation without the support of our parents, because we have certain guardrails here within the organization, but when students go home, they still have access to devices, still have access to tools. So tonight is a perfect opportunity for us, one, to build awareness, because I think part of the partnership is working with our parents and helping them understand the implications of the overutilization of technology, and working hand in hand with the community in creating policies and decisions that work in the best interest of our children and also align to what the research is telling us. But also doing it in collaboration, and I'll speak more to that later, but even thinking about the cell phone policy and how we didn't do that in isolation. We actually solicited a lot of parental feedback, but also student feedback, because if we don't do it with our scholars, then they will wind up finding creative ways of not following the rules or shifting how they approach the utilization of devices. And what we want to do is do it in partnership with them so that they work with us in doing things that are in their best interest.
So it seems that you need a lot of discussions on this kind of stuff between the school, the families, parents, and kids. Now, Nick and any other parent on the panel, in the film they talked about Tech Talk Tuesdays, where you have a short, calm, weekly conversation with your children about technology and the good and the bad. Do you think that, that's a good idea? Is that something that you would put in your home?
Yes, I like the idea of that. I think how it sort of panned out in that in the film probably wasn't our style in my family, but I like the essence of that. I think probably every family probably has to find their version of that. In my family, I find that we sort of address it in the moment at times. We don't have a specific time, but at least what I try to be conscious about is when they're being exposed to something new that's probably beyond their age. And so, like, for example, my kids love the Harry Potter series, and there's a point in the movies where it gets from sort of playful to a little bit more dark. And so understanding when they're about to see things that are sort of, like, there's more death in there, or when they're about to see things that are more violent, or, so we take those opportunities of when it happens to talk about that versus having a specific dedicated time. But that's also, I sort of, it's making me think about different ways we can incorporate that. But I like the essence of that, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like a very interesting idea. And one of the other things the film talked about was, having a screen time contract. Is that something that interests you? Is that something that you think that would help your kids?
My kids are still young for phones. I love the idea of that contract, and there were some things right off the bat that I thought was really helpful. And I think in my family's version of that, we have a few boundaries. My kids don't have phones. They're also not, I'm lucky that they're not big TV watchers, and so we take pretty hard boundaries on screens. So no screens an hour before bedtime, for example. And so we have sort of probably not the 18-point plan version of that, but we probably have the 3-point plan version of that for now. But I'm definitely open to that. I think that's a great idea.
Okay. All right. So let's back up a little bit and kind of widen our perspective here. The handout mentions resources for teaching digital citizenship at home and school. How is Norwalk Public Schools currently integrating these kind of soft skills into the curriculum, Dr. Australia?
So, in collaboration with Mr. Valancisi, we established a K-8 digital citizenship curricula for our scholars, and we work with our digital coaches across the district to support teachers in its implementation, because we want to make sure that at an early age, students understand how to be digitally responsible and how to utilize technology in ways that help enhance their learning experience, but also set limitations in terms of the frequency of its utilization.
Yeah, okay. So just to shift the focus a little bit here, in the film it kind of notes that tantrums are normal when you kind of have to have kids turn off tech. Stephanie, can you kind of explain how parents and staff can help students wind down between these screen-heavy schoolwork and social time?
It's a great question. I think that as a school, if we can start on the school level with I was actually speaking with our 6th grade team leader about things that we can do to transition our 5th graders to 6th graders a little bit better this year. You know, we're always trying to improve our practices, and one of the things that we actually talked about was pushing out messaging over the summer to talk to, like, kind of give parents some information about our expectations at school and things that they can start doing. Like, we did a survey, like an internal survey with the students, and one of the things that they said was that they're tired. And they're tired because they're on their phones. And some of them admitted that they're seeing their phones at night. And the parents have strict rules, but they still will go and get them once mom and dad are asleep. And they're using them, and their friends are waking them up in the middle of the night, and they're chatting. And we were talking today about what are some things that we can do to, like, educate parents on that, because a lot of times I think, and I know as a parent, I learn this stuff like kind of in the moment, and you don't know that this stuff is necessarily happening. So I think it's partially our responsibility to, especially since we know this information, to kind of help bridge that gap for parents and try to educate them. And then once the students are with us, what are the things that we can do to educate them about the Chromebooks and acceptable use policies and our expectations on not just the care of the Chromebooks, but what they're doing when they're using them. You know, we have a wonderful technology department that does, like Dr. Estrella was saying, it's a partnership with everybody, and what we're doing and how we can, there's things the kids know how to do that they stump us sometimes, that we are like catching up. And I think it's about the education, us helping the parents coming to us and saying, these are things we need help with, and it really is truly a partnership, everybody together.
Yeah, and you know, from watching the film, I kind of gathered that it's really important for parents to not just like talk the talk, but to also walk the walk.
Yeah.
Sergeant Ham, I'm sure you know that more than half kids report seeing their parents text while driving. From a safety perspective, how can we better model a tech-free behavior in our community?
Well, like I first brought up in the beginning, the accountability contract, I think that giving the children the ability to speak up and say something to the parent, why are you picking up your phone, you're driving a car? Also, the education of the dangers. A huge thing is education, right? We always try to, you're driving on the highway, you see the billboards, what's going on, the dangers, text later, it can wait. This is huge, but I don't think a lot of people understand until they watch a video like this about how we really can't multitask. And the misconception that we all have of, oh, I'm a great driver and I'm a great multitasker. The amount of danger we're putting people into on the roads around us, not just ourselves and the family we're carrying, but the people around us, is huge. And then lastly, unfortunately, enforcement, right? That always comes to the end. At the end, sometimes we have to give the tickets to correct the behavior, because there might have to be some punitive action taken if people aren't learning. We try to give warnings, we try to educate, but at the end of the day, there might need to be a ticket given, because when something costs you a lot of money, you think twice about the next time you're going to pick up that phone.
All right. I actually am very excited that you brought up multitasking, because my next question was for Yubi, and it's about multitasking. So the film claims that multitasking is linked to poor academic outcomes. As a student, do you find it more difficult to study with your phone nearby?
Yeah, like what my math teacher told me once, multitasking isn't real. And so certainly, there are some instances where I sometimes find myself studying, and then my phone's in my hand, and like I lose track of time, and it's already 2 a.m. What sometimes I would do is that I would give my phone to my mom, and I would get it back when I needed to take a break from studying, or once I complete an assignment. But I guess it's also about learning how you learn, like what sort of methods you use in order to retain information. For me, like I like to use paper, like paper assignments instead of online assignments, as you know, I'm not on my computer, I can't just randomly go on YouTube and watch funny cat videos, so I think that, there's a lot of difficulties into preventing, phone usage and multitasking, especially at home. And like in the school environment, it's actually easier to complete an assignment as, we're supposed to have our phones in the phone holder thing. So I feel like I have more of a success rate in finishing my assignments at school instead of at home, but for some people it can be easy to not have your phone near you.
Yeah. No, that was a wonderful point. And, and kind of in the same vein, we learned that screen use doesn't just impact your ability to, multitask or not multitask. It also can impact your ability to have real face-to-face empathy and connections. As a high school senior, do you think that you get enough tech-free spaces to kind of get those experiences?
Yeah, I certainly. So, like I mentioned before, I at least stay after school like 3 times a week for after-school clubs and activities. And when we're at those activities, there's other students there too, and we're typically not on our phones because we're focusing on issues that are impacting the community, or for example, I'm the president of the Key Club, and we go to Brookside every Thursday for at least 30 to 45 minutes, and there isn't a need for phones because just seeing the smiles on those students' faces, just brightens your day, and you kind of forget about phones even existing. But there's some times where, also in class, we put our phones up, even when the teacher isn't, requiring it, like isn't telling us to put our phones up. We do it out of respect for the teacher, but also we're excited to put like our phones up because we want to learn these interesting concepts that we're learning in class. Like, for example, in my theory of knowledge class, we voluntarily put our phones up without the teacher even telling us about putting our phones up, and that leads into having kind of like an empathy and building a community as we're actually are able to have organic discussions where it feels it built a safe space, and it would be kind of disrespectful for phones to be there. So I definitely think that, yeah, there's a lot of phone usage in school and outside of school, but there are spaces in the community and in school where empathy can be built without the presence of phones.
Thank you. So I'm going to kind of shift gears just a little bit. We talked about the way that not having phones makes you feel, but we learned in our film that having phones can increase your anxiety and depression. So Emily, research in the film shows that as social lives have moved to social media, anxiety and depression skyrocketed. So what are kind of like the red flags parents can look out for in their teens?
Sure, this is a great question. I want to reframe sort of this idea of red flags and think of it more as signals or symptoms. When you're catching a cold and you have that first sneeze, you sort of mobilize into a process, and it's the same with mental health. And so we, as family therapists, believe that parents, caregivers, you are the experts on your children and know your child the best. And so some of those signs and signals might be sleeping more, sleeping less, eating more, eating less, where once they were very social and engaged, they're now more withdrawn and isolated. those kind of changes in behavior that are not necessarily accounted for sort of normal teen hormones, normal teen behavior, but rather those changes that hit you on kind of that gut level. And so rather than sort of looking at them as red flags, problems to be fixed, behaviors to be squashed, we kind of say to have these calm and curious conversations and ask ourselves, what is happening in my child's mind, in my child's life, that might be creating some of these signals and symptoms. You know, what is the distress? What could be going on that their behavior is signaling me? That all behavior is communication. So even sort of the most unlovable behaviors and sort of the most confusing behaviors are still trying to signal you and communicate something. And so it's being able to have that conversation and to think to ourselves, what's happening with them? What's happening with my child? And asking, and then listening. You know, the film sort of outlined things like self-esteem, social issues. And as adults, we're kind of, our inclination is to say, don't worry, you know, high school is just a short period of life, you know, you're going to be okay. But for kids and our kids, these are their lives, these are the very real problems that are affecting them, just like our adult problems affect us and create behaviors and create our own symptoms and signals that we go to our support systems, not in our always most lovable or approachable state, to say something is wrong with me. And we're not always able to use those words to say, hey, I need help, I'm overwhelmed. Our kids are going to use their behavior and these signals to let you know that something is out of balance and out of whack. And so we try to talk about how do we approach that with collaboration, with empathy, and trying to understand and really hearing them out. The daughter, Tessa, in the film sort of listed her reasons why she wanted a phone. And that's a big deal to our kids. Even though as adults we may have a different stance and a different opinion, we want to be able to sort of empower them to have their own opinions and be able to speak openly about what is bothering them. Because when they do, and we can receive that, we're more likely to come up with solutions together as a family.
Thank you, that was very helpful. And you know, you're talking about the anxiety and depression that you can get from your phone, but that also includes, well, cyberbullying that happens to your phone. Sergeant Ham, in your experience with Norwalk Youth, how often does the online conflicts kind of spill over into offline conflicts?
So I had to discuss this with my cohort, John Kenny, who is the safety and security for the Norwalk Public Schools. So, online conflict or bullying, I think we need to distinguish, there is a difference. Now, bullying, I would say that the school handles the majority, if not all, of the bullying cases, and they are in front of it more times than not. If it does, and I'm not saying it doesn't, but if it does turn physical, it turns to physical violence, I would say that that is more of a rarity in a bullying aspect. The online conflict, on the other hand, is like group to group. That does occur, but I would say overall, we seem to be ahead of it. And the school system's doing a really good job monitoring all the activities of these students, and the students are actually coming forward and helping the administrators stay in front of it. So it happens, but I would not say that it is the norm. Although online conflict does have its place and it is almost involved in everything we do nowadays, so we can't say that it doesn't have an effect.
Yeah.
That makes sense?
No, that was very helpful. Thank you. I greatly appreciate that. I'm just going to take a moment here to decide where we're going to go next. So I guess this is kind of open to everyone. 75% of teens said they get inadequate sleep, often due to devices in the bedroom. Does anyone have some low-friction ways Norwalk families can move devices to a central charging station or someplace at night?
I would suggest, number one, if you have a student under the age of probably, I know there's a movement to wait until 8. I would wait until 9. I know if you're a student, you probably hate me right now, but you don't need them. They cause so much conflict, and a lot of the issues that we deal with in the school aren't really issues that happen during the school day. They're ones that happen from the time students leave school until the next morning. And they're dealing with them a lot of times in isolation, in secret sometimes, and it's stuff we don't even know exists sometimes. And they do have hidden accounts. You have parents that they're like, I monitor it heavily, and you can do all of the heavy monitoring you want, but the students often do have multiple accounts within an account, even if you cannot locate it. I would say that don't give them to them, don't offer them a device. I am a big fan of the Gizmo watches. I know there's other devices that you can have, that some of our students have, that can call certain family members only, that still can take pictures. They kind of look or mirror a device, but wait. And then in terms of if you are going to give them a device or when they're ready for a device, do not allow them in the bedroom at all whatsoever. And that also includes when they're studying. I like the idea of a central location for studying. Those of you that if your student has, or your child has like a MacBook Pro or an iPad, those have the same capabilities, right? So you can still text from them, so they can be studying, but still texting their friends, still on Instagram, still on Snapchat, still on TikTok. You have to monitor them, and if you're not there and available to be monitoring them, then my suggestion is don't have them at all. But to get them out of the bedrooms as much as you can. And buy a regular clock. They're wonderful. I still have mine from college. That was 30 years ago, all right? It still works. I put a battery in it. It works. It's awesome. I love it. And it's really, it's detrimental to me as a 50-year-old woman to have my phone next to my bed. So just know if it's affecting us, it's definitely affecting our scholars who are still growing, their brains are still developing. If we can do our part in stopping that from happening, I feel like a lot of this will stop.
I just wanted to sort of add to because we talked about spillover effects and the mental wellness, and in my profession, I'm the head of HR analytics essentially for a large financial company, and so I have a broad purview into a lot of people data that we have. And so one of the things that was sort of striking to me is around 2020, 2021, right after the pandemic, Gen Z started entering the workforce. That's when we experienced that. Right now, we have about 10% of our population that's Gen Z. And since that started, and not saying that that's completely the cause of it, but over the course of the last 3 years, we have about 80,000 employees. Over the last 3 years, the cost of mental health programs for our benefits programs have exceeded even pregnancy. It's one of the top costs. And we're seeing more employee relations cases, and all of those costs are primarily underpinned by substance abuse disorder, anxiety, and depression. Those are the top 3 drivers of those costs. And so when we talk about, I think a lot of what we're talking about here is issues within schools and then when they're going through adolescence, and if they're not addressed, if the symptoms and the flags aren't addressed, it doesn't stop there. It ends up going into the professional workplace, and we see much more interpersonal conflicts. We see much less ability for managers to be able to have healthy discussions with people. Like it ends up being a different version of what we're seeing. And so just as somebody with a broad purview, I just wanted to sort of add that lens to it because it sort of progresses over time and doesn't go away unless it's sort of addressed.
I'm actually going to stop you here for a second. We're running a little low on time, so I wanted to get our last real question in here, which is, if there is just one science fact rule from the handout, like no phones in cars or no screens in the bedroom, what do you think every Norwalk family should try this week if they could just do one? If you guys could just wrap them up.
For me, I want to kind of tie this into the friction-free question, which is to not feel the pressure to have to implement these contracts and plans in the heat of the moment. When you are already kind of in that conflict and in that place, is not the time to sort of start putting in these limits and putting in these boundaries. You know, the reason why we're all here tonight and the reason why this exists is as parents, we're scared. This is scary things. And a lot of times in that fear, it comes across as anger mistakenly. And that ends up pushing away our kids. Why are you mad at me? Before you know it, we're taking away Christmas, the Wi-Fi, you know, because we're trying so hard. But what's underneath that is because we're scared and we want what's best for you guys, you know? And so whatever it is that you choose, make sure that it fits within your family's strengths, that it feels that you can be successful with it, even if you have to start small and build up to it. But don't feel that these things have to happen right in the moment, because right in the moment, you're really scared. And as we're sort of learning that gap, that generational gap, they don't really quite understand why we're so scared. But being able to sort of meet there to say, okay, this is happening, and when it's passed, let's get together and sit down and really talk about this. Whatever it is that you choose to implement, that would kind of be sort of giving you my permission to start small, do what's best for your family, and don't feel like it's got to be right when everything is happening.
Thank you. We're actually going to use the last 2 minutes to take some questions from the audience. I'm not taking. Sorry.
This question is actually directed at Sergeant Ham. Myself and Christine here started the OK to Delay Norwalk chapter, which is telling people it's okay to delay social media for your kids and basically all the topics we're talking about. And a question we get a lot from parents, and they addressed this briefly in the film, was, I don't want my child going to school without a phone, God forbid, of an active shooter situation, things like that. So I was wondering if maybe you can address that and what your preference is when it comes to, you know, kids having phones and God forbid a situation like that.
Finally, a question that I actually feel comfortable answering. As they said in the video, 100% having a phone on you during any type of crisis event would be a problem. And not only because of the noise that might happen during a lockdown situation, but also just because if you send out a text message, make a phone call, the parent that receives that is going to call all the other parents, and now you're going to create a logjam. And I don't know if anybody knows about the finer details of some of the tragedy from 2012, but they had a hard time getting emergency service personnel in towards the school because the road was packed with cars. And that happens because we all have a phone on us and we all can contact each other. So once one person receives some type of information, we're sending it out on blast to everybody else. And then we're all heading there because at the end of the day, we're all concerned and we all want to help, but that is one of the worst things that can happen. Because if we can't get there to help, timely, bad things really do happen. So if we can not have that happen, it would be the best. So no phones would be the best situation for something like that.
So I have two questions. Number one is for the college student. I'm bad with names, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. So, for the phone thing, aren't you worried that anyone is going to take it? Like, just a little confused about that.
No, actually, you know, I think, well, McMahon, I'm speaking for McMahon, you know, I have a lot of trust in my classmates, and, you know, sometimes, like, I know that they're, like, it's saved. I don't have to worry about my phone being taken away because I feel like we have a community at McMahon where I'm walking down the hallway, my backpack is, like, halfway open, and then somebody immediately tells me that, like, oh, your backpack's open. So I kind of already have a sense of community where, like, yeah, things can get stolen, but, you know, there's always security cameras to there's a sense of security being in this building and being here for 4 years. For myself, I'm not worried of my phone getting stolen. Actually, there was this one time where one of my peers, they left their phone in the phone holder thing, and I had to come get, I had to email him on my school account telling him that your phone is in a science class. So, sometimes people forget their phones. Maybe that could be a fear, leaving your phone in the phone holder.
And then I got one more question. So you said like emergencies, you shouldn't bring your phone to school for like emergencies. What about like a fire alarm? I mean, I guess it's technically the same thing, but couldn't, say your parent is literally like right next to the school, why can't she just walk or take a different route? Sorry, this is like a small chance, small odds, but just in case. Just for any of you?
So, can you repeat the question?
So what happens if your parent can literally just walk to the school?
Yeah, the issue there is all the schools are in lockdown, so they're not going to have access to the school. They're going to be physically outside the school, and then that creates another type of barrier where if the officers are trying to get into the school for the emergency, or even the firefighters or EMS personnel, they're going to interfere with their movement, with their ingress, okay? And that it just creates the problem of any type of delay.
I'm a library media specialist here in Norwalk, and Dr. Estrella mentioned some of the work that the teachers and the coaches do with the students. I just wanted to let the parents know the library media specialists are always have a media literacy, digital citizenship, kind of as an underlying part of our program. And I did bring some resources for a family media plan that I have out in the hallway as you're leaving to kind of set some of those screen time expectations. But always you can check with us at any of the schools where we're working with technology balance with your students. I have a quick question also for the senior. I'm curious, are your classes like honors classes? When you say most kids do this honor system of where, I'm gonna voluntarily put my phone up there because I care about my grades. What kind of classes are you in?
I'm in the International Baccalaureate Diploma Programming, pretty long. And also I'm taking one AP class. And it could be because of the classes I'm taking, but when I was taking regular classes too, freshman year or honors classes, I wouldn't have a fear. When I was in Art 1, there was also a sense of community there, and I think generally, as a school, maybe we might not talk that much because we are on our phones a lot, but I feel like we have enough empathy to not take each other's phones or take each other's belongings, maybe a piece of gum or a pencil found on the floor, but...
No, I didn't mean that. I meant more you made it sound like when you guys come into the class, you put your phone aside. You guys don't, you're allowed to keep it on you. Is that true?
Well...
Sorry, I'm new to Norwalk Public Schools this year.
Oh, no, it's totally fine. As a student, well, I don't want to get anybody in trouble here, but... as a student, sometimes I would have my phone, on my person. I wouldn't use it though. If it was instructional support, study hall, for example. But sometimes we would voluntarily put our phones up there. You don't have to. The teacher sometimes tells us to, and we do. For example, in my math class, my teacher has a plastic container, and we just put our phones in there, and then we get it back after class. But essentially, like in my classes, I don't really see that much people using their phones because it's kind of disrespectful to the teacher, and it's shown.
Sorry to cut you off. That's where I wanted to circle back. So do you think it has to do with the type of classes those students in those types of classes, or across the board are kids like that in the school?
I think.
Or do you not know? You can say no.
No, I definitely think it's across the board. Because if it was a study hall, for example, there would be phones because you're not doing anything in there. But if it was like an art class, a regular art class, I don't think there would be presence on as long as the class is engaging, no matter what type of level it is, like honors, regular, as long as the class is engaging, you're not going to see any phones out.
Thank you for answering.
I hope I answered it.
And I think as a district, general policy is in an K-8, bell to bell, there's no devices at the high school level because we are allowing them to do some adulting. They are not allowed to use the devices during class time, but during passing and lunch, they're allowed to use their devices.
Hi, this question is for Dr. Estrella. So I just recently on one of the community education pages in Facebook, somebody was posing a question or possibly starting a petition to get rid of screen time during indoor recess for elementary school and or free time. Is this something that you would enforce or implement? I know that it's usually under the discretion of the teacher, but it's not necessarily a district-wide policy.
So we would definitely look into what the request is. I would have to better understand what the ask is to be able to respond to that. Our expectation is for our K-8 that from bell to bell they don't have devices. And in recess, I would have to see what exactly they are doing.
So let me preface this. So they don't have phones, but they have access to their computers. So during indoor recess, they're more prone to grabbing their computer and start playing games. So just getting rid of the computer usage, I should say.
We can definitely look into that. Absolutely. Because it's an opportunity for them. We could bring board games. There's a number of different things that they can do during that time. So
all right, so we're wrapping up our evening, but I have one very, very important question. That's for you, Doctor. And that is, we've learned that this isn't really an individual issue, it's kind of a community issue. So, what would you say to a parent that kind of wants to get involved and active in dealing with this issue?
I think it was already resonated in the public, just providing us with the feedback. We've made it our mission around this work to really solicit parental input in terms of what parents really want us to do differently or continue to do in support of what they're doing at home, and also listening to our scholars and understanding what the lived experience is for them, what are some of the things that are working well, not working well, but also, most importantly, do things in partnership with. Because we know that, particularly for high school students, if we don't do the work in collaboration with them, they will find creative ways, even in middle school, to break the rules or the expectations. So making sure that we're working with them and educating them. We saw it in the film when students talked about, or where children talked about, when they understand the rationale behind the why, they're more willing to do as asked. So really looking at explaining, educating our students through our digital media work, and also working with our families to ensure that we're working collectively to do what's best for students as we continue to see how the research evolves, because there's still a lot that we don't know.
Thank you. And thank you to all our participants that came up. Thank you so much, my panelists. Thank you to the audience for coming. I greatly appreciate it. On your way out, there are pamphlets that that you can pick up, and I believe other things as well on the desks out there if you'd like to grab some.
Can I just say?
Yeah, of course.
I just wanted to give a special thank you to Mr. Balancisi, the digital leader of the media, special leader in the district that supported this work. They worked really hard to put this together, so thank you for your leadership and for the rest of the team's work.